The inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
With problems with healthcare.gov largely fixed, attention is focused once again on the ticking clock. The deadline to secure health insurance for 2014 is March the 31st. What help is available for Ohioans who want to sign up for health insurance? Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. I'm Dan Hurley. Implementing the Affordable Care Act is a massive, complicated, and complex process. This week, the White House once again extended a key deadline for mid-sized businesses to sign up and the percentage of employees that large businesses must cover in 2014. Here's a report that was prepared by CBS News last week on those changes.
It's being touted by the Obama administration as a break for businesses, an attempt to make for a smoother transition for companies with between 50 and 99 employees. Jay Angoff, the former head of implementation of the Affordable Care Act with the Department of Health and Human Services, said it could result in a win-win situation.
People who businesses would otherwise be required to buy insurance for will have to buy insurance in the individual market. And many of these people are going to be young people in good health. But
Angoff is also critical of the decision, calling it unnecessary.
Well, I think the administration has bent over backwards to satisfy business.
As an attorney, he also isn't sure the delay is legal under the Constitution, a sentiment echoed by many members of Congress.
So if he wants to get them changed, he needs to come to Congress and make his case to Congress. But he has no authority to continue implementing the rest of the law as he feels like it.
That decision, announced Monday, also gave some help to larger businesses. Instead of requiring them to provide benefits for 95% of their full-time workers, they've lowered that to 70%, also until 2016.
But for individuals seeking health coverage, the March 31st deadline is still in place. Enroll America is responsible for coordinating a wide variety of organizations who want to assist the uninsured acquire health coverage, as well as raising awareness of the options available to get insurance. I'm joined this morning by Trey, Daly, the Ohio State Director of Enroll America. Mr. Daly worked for over 23 years as an attorney for the Legal Aid Society of Southwest Ohio here in Cincinnati. He joined Enroll America last July. Trey, welcome back to Newsmakers.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you, Dan.
Interesting position you've taken on here and task. This is at the center of just the heart of so many things that are going on right now. So, been a roller coaster this far?
It has been keeping my hands tight on the rails. It's been an exciting time. You know, we started out with 1.3 million uninsured Ohioans at the beginning of this process, and finally, for the first time for many of them, there are quality, affordable health care options open to them, and it's been an exciting time trying to get those options connected to folks.
Let's begin what happened last week with this change of the rules for mid-sized businesses and also for larger business to some extent, but different kind of change. What does that do? Does that impact people that you can reach out to?
It probably won't have a very significant impact. On the one hand, the vast majority of people who work for larger companies are already offered health insurance. Over 90% of large employers offer health coverage.
So even though that lowering that to 70% doesn't really make that much difference because they're already doing it.
Exactly, exactly. And then most of the folks who remain uninsured work for small businesses. So those are the folks for whom these new options are available, and we're really focusing on reaching them.
Okay. So lots of coverage, but maybe not a lot of impact, or not as huge number of people involved.
Right.
But for the individuals out there who don't fall into those categories, that's where healthcare.gov and all of this really does apply, where you are trying to reach out. Who are those people? Who are you trying to get enrolled? How would you define that group of people?
Well, if you look at the data, they are disproportionately male. They're disproportionately white. The vast majority of them are employed. If you really wanted to see the face of the uninsured in Ohio and in the country in general, it might look a lot like me. So they're our friends, our neighbors, sometimes our coworkers, our sons, our daughters, our nephews, our nieces. They're kind of in every segment of the economy, every neighborhood, everywhere we live and work.
As you look at Ohio, and I'm sorry I didn't pull this, I sort of found it too late, but there's a map of where the most people are uninsured. It's not evenly distributed across the state.
Right. So the largest numbers of the uninsured are congregated in the largest metropolitan areas. So that's Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland. Enroll America has, in fact, offices in the 3 Cs in Ohio, where we are basing our sort of community organizing strategy. We have field organizers and over 700 volunteers across the state of Ohio every day who are having conversations with uninsured folks in barbershops, grocery stores, libraries, social service agencies, beginning a conversation with them to let them know some of the important facts about the coverage that's available. The themes that are really resonating with people are things like this. One, that there's financial assistance available to help them pay for premiums for private coverage to make them affordable. 9 out of 10 folks are going to qualify for some form of financial assistance.
9 out of 10 who are uninsured? Okay.
That's why it's called the Affordable Care Act. The other issues that are really important to people are that they can't be denied coverage because of pre-existing conditions, and then that all of the policies that are offered must cover certain essential minimum benefits, the things that most people use their health insurance for: regular doctor visits, maternity care, emergency room, hospitalization, medication, that sort of thing.
Let's talk about Hamilton County, just for an example. You know, it's one of the urbanized counties that you were mentioning. How many choices are there? If you go on and you live in this county and you want to see what kind of range of choices you have, how much choice do you really have here?
There's a lot of choice. And so you mentioned healthcare.gov before. That system is working a lot more effectively than it did in October. That's not saying much. But one of the great improvements is that right when you go to the front page of healthcare.gov, you can click on a button and see all of the plans that are available for your county. And so in Hamilton County, there are roughly 70 different plans. They fall into different categories. The categories have medal names like gold, silver, platinum, bronze, sort of like the Olympics. And the difference in those plans is they all cover the same things, but how much you pay out of pocket differs. You pay more in a premium for a platinum plan and less co-payments and deductibles. You pay less for a bronze plan and premiums, but more co-payments and deductibles. So most people are picking silver plans. About 90% of the folks who have enrolled in silver plans are qualifying for financial assistance tax credits to help them pay the premiums. Many of those are also qualifying for additional help for the co-payments and the deductibles. And so it's just a process of looking through those plans, figuring out which ones cover the doctors that you want to go to, the hospitals that you typically go to, the medicines that you need covered, to figure out what's best for you and your family.
If you're a person who has not had health insurance and you're suddenly offered 76, 72, what was it?
72 plans.
72 plans in Hamilton County. That can seem overwhelming.
Absolutely.
Are there people who can help you get through that and sort of, I mean, let's say there's people who aren't that used to working with a computer as well. Are there ways to have someone sort of walk you through, ask you the right questions so that you can focus on what it is you really need and can afford and what sort of help is going to be available? There
are a network of trained, unbiased, free, certified enrollment assisters who can help folks walk all the way through the process. The process at healthcare.gov basically has 3 parts. One is you set up an electronic account. 2, you find out if you qualify for Medicaid or for tax credits to help you pay premiums, and then 3, you make the plan selection. So there are over 100 enrollment assisters available in Hamilton County who can sit down with you next to the laptop, If you don't have a computer, they have computers. If you don't know how to use the computer, they'll walk you through the process. They're not going to tell you what plan to pick, but they're going to help you identify the questions that you need to answer when you're looking at all of those options. And a lot of folks we're finding will sort of get to the point of looking at all the plans and then pause and want to print out some of that information, mull it over, talk to family members. And those enrollment assisters are available for you to come back to, start back where you stopped off in the process, and make those final selections.
How do you find someone to assist you?
Sure. Well, there are a few ways. One way we'd recommend is through our websites, enrollamerica.org and getcoveredamerica.org has several tools that are helpful. One is a calculator where you put in your income, family size, and your zip code, and it'll tell you what the average premiums are for someone of your age in your community, and then what kind of tax credit you would qualify for, so what your net premium would be after the application of financial assistance. That's one tool. A second tool is a local help finder. So again, you just put in your zip code and it'll give you a list of all of the enrollment assisters who have been certified by the federal government to provide that free, unbiased assistance.
And then you can get in touch with them.
Right.
A couple of questions that I think are sort of contextual, and we're not just in Cincinnati, we're not seen just in Hamilton County.
Right.
How important was it that Governor Kasich in the state of Ohio decided to expand Medicaid as part of this process?
Well, it's huge. You know, if you look at the data, about half of the uninsured in Ohio fall under the income guidelines for the expanded Medicaid program, which is equal to about $16,000 a year for a single person. So if we had not expanded the Medicaid program, most of those low-income working folks and families would have been left out in the cold with no choices. So right now we're seeing, just as the data might suggest, about half of those folks who are getting coverage are going into the Medicaid program, and half of them are purchasing private insurance through the health insurance marketplace.
So that was a critical decision.
Absolutely.
We look across the river to Kentucky. Kentucky has been very aggressive, setting up its own website, its own portal, its own system. How are they doing compared to Ohio? We hear lots of news about they're sort of the example. That's why the governor was at the State of the Union talk.
Right.
Well, how does that look right now for those of us who live right on that border?
Well, it's the Kentucky miracle, really. The Connect system, the state-based marketplace that Kentucky has set up, has been an incredible success. Just looking at some data this past week, 1 out of 3 folks in Kentucky who were uninsured 2 months ago now have health coverage as a result of the Affordable Care Act and the state-based marketplace that Kentucky has set up. Either they've purchased private insurance with financial assistance, or they've qualified for the expanded Medicaid program in Kentucky. That is an incredible success story in terms of achieving the goals of the Affordable Care Act, moving people from lack of health insurance, all of the health insecurity and financial insecurity that's involved in that, with the peace of mind that comes with having quality, affordable health coverage.
As you've talked to people, as you've heard the assisters and what they report back about the people they're trying to help, what's the biggest misconception that may be preventing people from moving forward on this?
Well, we hear this both from the assisters on the ground, and then also Enroll America did a survey in January. And what we found is that 7 out of 10 of the uninsured have not attempted to enroll at all. So it's not the website that explains why people have not been able to access coverage. They just haven't focused on it yet. And we're all a bit of a procrastinator, so many folks are putting it off to the last minute. That was the experience in Massachusetts, which was really the model for the Affordable Care Act, that a large portion of folks put it off to the end, so March, when they enrolled in coverage. And those folks who have not tried, typically the reason that they give is they say that it's not affordable, but they're not aware of the tax credits and the Medicaid eligibility that's now available. Once they're informed about the financial assistance, they think, okay, this is something that I can afford. It may not be any more than my cell phone bill or my cable bill. It's a good financial investment for myself and my family. I'm
out of time, but I have one more question I have to ask. This March 31st is the deadline to get insurance 2014. If a person doesn't get it, is there a penalty?
There is a penalty for folks who choose not to have coverage and are not otherwise exempted, and low-income people will be exempted. The penalty is 1% of your modified adjusted gross income. It's at least $95, but it'll probably be more than that because most people at that level will qualify for Medicaid. So this year it will be 1% of income. It will go up in further years if you choose not to have coverage.
Okay. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your work. Let's keep moving forward.
Thank you.
Okay. Stay tuned. After the break, I'll be joined by the Cincinnati-based producer of a new documentary that explores the role of hate crimes in the justice system and the media.
The two suspects in the Tulsa, Oklahoma shooting spree have been charged with first-degree murder.
Well, I think nationally, they
talk about hate crimes.
Murders are a hate crime.
Been a hate crime.
Hate crime.
Hate crimes. The media is focused on what's going to sell. And death penalty cases, especially lurid ones that involve race or sex, seems to be what sells. People are utterly fascinated by these kinds of things, and the more they're fascinated, the more they watch. The more they watch, the more advertising revenue people get.
We've had actually more hate crimes committed since the president's been in office than we have in the last 25 years.
I think people need to realize we don't put a lot of importance on calling it a hate crime when we have a murder.
Welcome back. For almost 2 years, a local documentary filmmaker has been working on a major project focused on the issue of hate crimes as they are treated in the justice system and by the media. The point of departure is a murder rampage on Good Friday 2012 by 2 white residents of Tulsa, Oklahoma that left 3 African Americans dead and 2 others wounded. Development of the documentary was supported nationally by the John Hamilton Houston Institute on Race and Justice at the Harvard Law School and DePaul University's Center for Justice in Capital Cases and the New Jersey City University. The documentary will premiere here in Cincinnati on Monday, February the 24th at the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center. I am joined now by Rachel Lyon, the producer of Hate Crimes in the Heartland. Ms. Lyon has produced 65 documentaries and international series focused on human and civil rights issues, particularly the intersection of media, crime, and punishment. Rachel, welcome back to Newsmakers. It's great to have you. It's great to know this project is over and is now being shown.
It is good.
And I have to reveal my conflict of interest. Besides having become a friend, I'm also interviewed for this, and I guess I didn't end up completely on the cutting room floor. I don't know how much I'm in, but I am in the documentary, so I want to make that clear to people. You have already screened this in several cities, including Tulsa. What's the reaction to this?
We are doing a sweep through 7 cities during Black History Month here in 2014, and it's been remarkable. The dialogues that have happened in the rooms have been surprisingly personal, deep, and people not working with their what's the most politically correct thing that I must say. And in Tulsa, we had the chief of police and the head of the Tulsa World, the paper of record there, both on the panel, and they went toe to toe. Why didn't you call it a hate crime? Why did you push us to call it a hate crime? Etc. So it was really lively, what I would call a spicy dialogue. Spicy, lively, productive? Absolutely, because what we show in this documentary is that between 1921 and the Tulsa race riots, the worst race riots that ever happened,
and we're going to show a little bit about that in a minute, but go ahead. In the United States, and 2012, that there's been a tremendous amount of progress, that we as a nation, and specifically Tulsa as a city, has made progress on the issue of race relations and whether or not they can work together. Okay, let's take a look now at what happened in Tulsa in 1921 and the backdrop for what happened in 2012 that everybody in Tulsa understood. So let's take a look. This is, again, from Hate Crimes in the Heartland.
While race relations were clearly bad throughout the American South, regrettably, we're the only community to have had a genocide.
As much as we talked about racial segregation and Jim Crow laws in the 1920s, Tulsa was different.
Before the riots, you had a community that, although that it was separated by race, it was very vibrant. It was so vibrant that many would call it a magic city because of the fact that the oil boom era was in full effect here in Tulsa.
There were no other communities where you had such a diversified business community with the cleanings and the shoe place and haberdasheries.
And then all of that changed on May 31st because there was a report which was false.
This guy that worked downtown at the hotel, he got on the elevator and it shifted and he bumped into the lake.
So when the elevator door opens, she hollers rape, bingo, there it starts.
You throw into this combustible mixture a tolerance of lynching, a tolerance of denying civil liberties to a group of people because of the pigment in their skin. So you get a violent society, young males looking for a wild time on a Saturday night away from those watching eyes of the community and civil behavior. You throw all of this together with his racism, and on May 31st, 1921, it erupts.
An incredible riot. I mean, we talk about race riots in American history, but Tulsa, as it was mentioned in the beginning, was almost genocide. I mean, that was the word that was used. How was that riot treated by the media in the 1920s? How well, or by the justice system, how well was it handled?
In 1921, the media was kind of ruled by 5 white guys who were able to get into a room and say, this story is not going out. And the story was suppressed, largely suppressed by the white media. And if you can imagine that situation happening today, the police colluded and helped. You can't murder 300 people in one night in a city without the police knowing about it. And not a single white person was brought to justice or even tried for the horrendous crimes of 1921. In 2012, the media helped solve the crime. So it was a huge arc of change.
You're going to show this at the documentary at the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center on Monday the 24th, and we'll just put all that information up. And then we'll have a discussion, which I've been invited to moderate. But what do you hope is accomplished in a place like Cincinnati? We're not in Tulsa. We didn't have the Tulsa riots of 1921. This is not where the Good Friday shootings of 2012 occurred. Why is this important in Cincinnati?
We really examine in this film the national conversation and situation on race. What we look at is Tulsa as a snapshot, but all of the leaders in this documentary talk about what is happening nationally, and we can look at, and we are looking at city by city, New York, Harvard, Miami, Cincinnati, Chicago, New Jersey. We are looking at how does this apply to us? And in every case, we're finding that the audiences are really responding. We have, whether it's a stand and frisk law, whether it's a stand your ground law, whether it's a situation where the temperatures have been kind of put under the rug. Every city has its racial injustice issues.
So by you being around in this initial tour of 7 cities, it's going to be a very interesting insight into how this conversation is occurring in different places in America and how well different cities can even have this conversation. I mean, that's always been one of the things. Are we too polite here in Cincinnati to even talk about the hard issues?
It is always hard to be upfront, and particularly about race. People can be more upfront about almost any other issue than they will be about race. They are afraid to look out of place. And yet, Hate crimes have nearly doubled in the last 10 years. That what we've seen is, rather than becoming a post-racial society, our culture has fractured, has fragmented, and while people won't tend to say it in a room, they will do it on the streets.
I want to make sure people know how to join the conversation on February 24th. So as I said, Monday, February the 24th, beginning at 6 p.m. at the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center. There is a $15 charge, and you can sign up through the Freedom Center website. I think is probably the easiest way to go here in Cincinnati. Rachel, congratulations. I know what it's like to get a big project like this finished, and such an important project stimulating so much discussion. I look forward to the 24th.
Thank you so much, Dan.
See you then. Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. We leave you this morning with a final clip from Hate Crimes in the Heartland.
We've gone from open warfare, like what happened in 1921, to a much more insidious form of racial divide in this country.
It's left to be seen yet as to whether he was motivated to act in any way out of racial animus. I don't think he was.
The Good Friday murders in Tulsa are important because they have the potential